Hello, I'm Alex. I'm 23 and I fix marketing campaigns for a living. Or at least I try to. I've been at this agency in Chicago for 6 months still. The new guy still learning the ropes. My boss Sophia is the CEO 40 sharp as a blade with this quiet confidence that makes you feel like she's always 3 steps ahead. She's not mean, just intense, the kind of person who can silence a room with a single look. I respect her maybe even a little too much. Her office is all glass and steel. Her suits tailored, her words precise. She's fair, but you don't mess up twice. I've always kept my distance, nodded at her instructions, kept my head down. But sometimes when she's reviewing my work, her eyes lock on mine, and I feel like I'm being weighed. It's not uncomfortable, just heavy. We were in New York for a client pitch, my first big trip with her. The day had been long meetings, PowerPoints, handshakes with people whose names I forgot as soon as they left the room. By evening, we were at JFK, ready to catch a late flight back home. Outside, a winter storm was raging, the kind of East Coast beast that turns rain into needles and wind into a howl. The terminal was chaos, screens flashing delayed and canceled. Voices crackling over the intercom drowned out by the wind rattling the windows. Passengers crowded the counters, some shouting, others slumped in chairs, clutching coffee cups like lifelines. My phone buzzed with alerts. Winter storm warning. Expect delays. Sophia stood by a window, her coat still on, scrolling through her phone with a calm that didn't match the scene. This isn't good, she said, her voice low like she was talking to herself. The airline desk was a mess, line snaking through the terminal. People arguing over vouchers and rebookings. Our flight was officially canceled. The gate agent's voice flat as she handed out instructions. They're offering hotel vouchers, I said, showing Sophia the email. She nodded already, dialing a number, her fingers quick on the screen. We'll try for a room, she said. No point staying here. I watched her work, calling hotel after hotel, Marriott, Hilton, a couple of budget places near the airport. All booked. Her brow furrowed, but she didn't snap. Didn't raise her voice, just kept dialing. Finally, she got through to a boutique place a few miles out. It's ours, she said, hanging up. We took a cab through the storm, the wipers barely keeping up, the driver muttering about black ice. The hotel was a low-rise building, modern but not flashy. The sign flickering in the wind. The lobby was warm, all thick carpets and soft yellow lights, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. The wind howled, shaking the glass doors, but inside it was quiet, almost too quiet. We checked in, the clerk sliding over key cards with a tired smile. Suite 412, he said. Elevators to the left. Sophia thanked him, her tone crisp, and we headed up our bags, rolling behind us. The carpet muffling our steps. The suite door clicked open and a wave of warmth hit us, the air smelling faintly of lavender from some diffuser in the corner. The room was bigger than I expected. Polished wood floors, a sleek desk, a wide glass window. Looking out at the rain-slicked runway, planes grounded like sleeping giants. A king-size bed dominated the space, its white linens, crisp pillows stacked high. Next to it was a small sofa, more decorative than functional. Its cushion stiff and narrow. Sophia set her bag down, untying her scarf, her coat slipping off her shoulders to reveal a tailored blazer and skirt, her usual armor. She glanced at the bed, then at me, her eyes catching the light. Only one bed, she said, her voice dried, a faint smirk playing on her lips. Want to risk it tonight? My face went hot, and I laughed more out of nerves than anything. I'll take the sofa, I said, pointing at the sad little thing in the corner. Sophia raised an eyebrow, shrugging off her blazer. That sofa's a joke, she said, her tone matter of fact, that half smile still there. Sleep here. It's just a bed, Alex. My heart kicked up, thewing in my chest. She wasn't flirting, not exactly. But her words carried a weight, like she was testing me, seeing if I'd flinch. I nodded, trying to play it cool. Yeah, okay, I said, my voice tighter than I wanted. I'll figure it out. She kicked off her heels, setting them neatly by the door, and walked to the window, her silhouette sharp against the glass. The runway lights flickered through the rain, casting a golden glow on her face, softening the edges I was used to seeing in boardrooms. I dropped my bag by the sofa, my hands suddenly restless. This was Sophia, my boss, the woman who could make a client sign a contract with a single sentence. And now we were here in this quiet room, the storm screaming outside, about to share a bed. It wasn't just the logistics, it was the shift. The way she looked less like a CEO and more like a person. Her scarf was draped over a chair, her hair looser, now a few strands falling free. I sat on the edge of the bed, testing the mattress firm under my weight. The room was warm, but the wind's howl seeped through a reminder of the chaos we'd escaped. Sophia turned from Manzu the window, her eyes catching mine for a second before she grabbed her bag. "I'm taking a shower," she said, her voice casual like this was normal, like we weren't about to cross some invisible line. "You good?" I nodded, my throat dry. "Yeah, I'm good." She gave a small nod, that smirk flickering again, and headed to the bathroom. The door clicked shut, and I heard the water start a steady rush that mingled with the storm outside. I stood pacing to the window, the runway, a blur of rain and lights. My reflection stared back, a 23-year-old kid in a wrinkled button-up out of his depth. Sophia was 40, a woman who had built a company, who walked into rooms and owned them. And yet here we were, stuck in a storm, about to share a bed because a sofa wasn't an option. The contrast hit me hard. The noise of the airport, the wind screamed, the crowded terminal, and now this quiet, warm room, just us. My heart was still racing, not from the canceled flight, but from the thought of lying next to her, the woman I'd spent months admiring from across conference tables. Her presence always a little overwhelming. The water stopped and I heard the bathroom door creak. I turned back to the bed, its white expanse suddenly huge, impossible to ignore. I sat again, my hands on my knees, trying to steady my breathing. Sophia would be out any second and I'd be lying next to her, the most powerful woman I knew, through a night that already felt like it was rewriting the rules. The bathroom door clipped open and the sound of running water faded, leaving only the storm's howl outside. I was already on the bed, lying on my side, facing the wide glass window where the runway lights flickered through the rain. My heart was still thudding, not just from the chaos of JFK or the canceled flight, but from the reality of this mean 23 about to share a bed with Sophia, my CEO, the woman who could make a room full of execs sit up straight with one glance. I kept my eyes on the window, the rain streaking across it, trying to act like this was no big deal. But it was. It was a huge deal. Sophia stepped out, her bare feet soft on the wood floor. I didn't turn, but I felt her presence, the air shifting as she moved closer. She was wearing a thin gray sweater and dark pajama pants, loose but not sloppy. Her hair, damp and loose, fell past her shoulders. The sharp scent of her shampoo, something clean like eucalyptus, cut through the lavender haze of the room. She paused by the bed, and I heard the faint rustle of fabric as she pulled back the blanket. The mattress dipped slightly as she slid in her weight, settling on the other side. I stayed still, my body rigid near the edge, leaving as much space as I could without falling off. Her warmth hit me almost immediately, radiating through the sheets, a quiet reminder that she was right there, inches away. The storm raged outside, the wind, slamming against the glass, rattling it in its frame. Inside the suite was a cocoon warm, dimmed the yellow glow of a bedside lamp, casting soft shadows on the walls. Neither of us spoke at first, the silence heavy but not awkward, just full. I could hear her breathing slow and steady and the faint rustle of the blanket as she adjusted it. "Those clients today," she said finally, her voice low, a little playful. "Think they'll ever stop asking for neon fonts?" I laughed, a quick huff, grateful for the break in tension. "Not a chance," I said, still facing the window. "They probably think Comic Sans is cutting edge." She chuckled, a soft, throaty sound that made my chest tighten. "You're not wrong," she said. The conversation drifted to small things. Her annoyance with the client's last-minute changes, my story about a campaign I'd botched in my first month. "You recovered," she said, her voice warm like she meant it. "Not everyone does." I turned my head slightly, just enough to see her out of the corner of my eye. She was propped on one elbow, the blanket pulled up to her waist, her hair catching the lamplight strands, still wet and clinging to her neck. "Where'd you grow up, Alex?" she asked, her tone curious, softer than the one she used in meetings. "Small town in Illinois?" I said. "Cornfields, one stoplight. You know the deal." She nodded like she could picture it. "Sounds quiet," she said. "It was," I replied, "too quiet sometimes." A gust of wind hit the window, sharp and loud, cutting us off. The glass shuddered, and for a moment, we both froze, listening to the storm's fury. The runway lights flickered, their glow, muted by the rain, and the room felt smaller. The world outside wild and untamed. I could hear her breathing again, closer now, the blanket shifting as she moved. Her arm brushed mine just barely, her damp hair grazing my skin. I didn't move, didn't dare my body tense like I was balancing on a tightrope. The touch wasn't intentional, but it was there, electric in its simplicity. Her warmth seeping into me through the thin sleeve of my shirt. "You comfortable?" she asked, her voice low, almost a whisper, but clear enough to cut through the storm's noise. I nodded, my throat too tight to trust my voice. "Yeah." I managed, barely audible. I wasn't comfortable. Not real. My heart was racing. My mind stuck on the fact that Sophia, the woman who ran our company with an iron grip, was lying next to me, her hair brushing my arm, her breath close enough to feel. She shifted again, settling deeper into the pillow, and the blanket pulled taut between us. A thin barrier that did nothing to hide her presence. I kept my eyes on the window, the rain, a blurry curtain, but my focus was on her. The faint scent of her shampoo, the soft rustle of the sheets, the way her warmth seemed to fill the space. The lamp's glow caught her skin, painting it gold. And for the first time, I saw her, not as the CEO, not as the woman who could make a room go quiet, but as Sophia, just Sophia. Her face was softer without the makeup. Her eyes less guarded. Her hair loose and messy in a way that felt human, not calculated. The storm outside was a wall of sound, wind, rain. The occasional crack of something hitting the glass. But in here it was just us. The ticking of a clock on the desk, the hum of the heater, the faint creak of the mattress. I wanted to say something to keep the conversation going, but my words felt stuck, like anything I said would break the moment. She turned slightly, her shoulder brushing mine again, and I caught my breath, holding it like I could stop time. "This storm's relentless," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, like she was talking to the room as much as to me. "Yeah," I said, my voice steadier now. "Feels like it's trying to tear the city apart." She laughed softly, a sound that felt like a gift in the quiet. "Can try," she said, "but we're still here." Her words were simple, but they landed heavy, like they meant more than just surviving the night. I lay there, my body still near the edge, but the distance between us felt smaller. Not just physically, but in some deeper way. The blanket was warm, her warmth blending with mine, and the storm outside seemed farther now, less threatening. I could feel her presence in every small sound, the shift of her weight, the soft exhale of her breath, the faint brush of her hair against my arm. It wasn't just about being close. It was about being here in this moment with her. I'd spent months watching her from across conference rooms, admiring her strength, her control. But this was different. This was real. The runway lights flickered again, their glow painting her face in soft gold. Her eyes half closed, her lips relaxed. I wanted to memorize it, the way she looked right then. Not the CEO, not my boss, just Sophia, human and close. A sharp crack jolted me awake. The sound of something heavy slamming against the window. The storm was at its peak, the wind howling like a living thing, rattling the glass in its frame. I blinked, my heart thudding the blanket, warm but heavy across my chest. Sophia was already up, propped on her elbow, her hair, a dark curtain falling over one shoulder. The faint light from the runway outside caught her face, her eyes wide alert, but her lips pressed tight like she was holding back a shiver. "You okay?" I asked, my voice rough from sleep, sitting up slightly. She nodded, a quick jerk of her head, but pulled the blanket higher, her shoulders trembling just enough to notice. Outside, the storm was relentless rain. lashed the window wind, screaming a low rumble of thunder rolling in the distance. The room felt smaller, the walls pressing in, but the warmth under the blanket was a shield, a small pocket of safety. I shifted closer without thinking, closing the gap I tried so hard to keep earlier. My arm brushed hers and she didn't pull away, didn't even flinch. Instead, she leaned toward me just a fraction, her shoulder grazing mine. The heat from her body spread fast, cutting through the chill of the room, making the storm's roar feel farther away. Her sweater was soft against my skin, the faint eucalyptus scent of her shampoo mixing with the lavender air of the suite. We didn't speak, just lay there, eyes open, watching each other in the dim glow. The runway lights flickered through the rain, casting a golden sheen across her face, softening the sharp lines I knew from boardrooms. Her eyes weren't the CEO's now cool commanding, but something else, unguarded, almost vulnerable. I could hear her breathing slow and steady, matching the rhythm of my own. The blanket shifted, rustling softly, and her hand brushed mine under the covers. Not intentional, just there, her fingers warm against my knuckles. I didn't move, didn't dare, afraid to break whatever this was. The wind howled again, a long mournful wail, but it didn't matter as much now. She was here close, and that was enough. Sophia lay back down slower this time, her body settling closer than before. The gap we'd started with was gone like it had never mattered. Her shoulder pressed against mine, her hair spilling across the pillow, a few strands brushing my arm. The mattress creaked faintly, the sound swallowed by the storm. I could feel her warmth, steady and real, seeping through the blanket, through her sweater into me. It wasn't just physical. It was the weight of her trust. The way she hadn't pulled back, hadn't rebuilt the walls we were used to at work. My heart was still racing, but not from fear. It was her. The way she lay there calm despite the storm. Her presence filling the room like the lamp's soft glow. The silence wasn't awkward anymore. It was something else, something deeper. It felt like we were sharing more than a bed, more than a moment. I could hear the faint tick of the clock, the hum of the heater kicking on the storm's relentless drumming outside. But inside, it was just us. Her breath. My breath, the warmth between us. I wanted to say something, to ask if she was really okay, but the words felt unnecessary. She'd leaned into me, chosen to stay close, and that said more than any question could. I let my eyes trace her face, the curve of her jaw, the way her lips parted slightly as she breathed. She wasn't the CEO right now, not the woman who could silence a room with a glance. She was Sophia, human, real. And right here, another gust hit the window, the glass shuddering, and I felt her tense for a second, her shoulders stiffening against mine. I turned my head just enough to see her eyes still open, watching me. "It's just the wind," I said, my voice low, trying to sound steadier than I felt. She nodded, her lips curving into a small, almost invisible smile. "I know," she said, her voice soft, barely above a whisper. She didn't move away, didn't retreat. Instead, she settled deeper into the pillow, her body closer now, the blanket pulling taut between us. Her hands stayed near mine, not holding, just resting her fingers, brushing my wrist like a quiet promise. I could feel her heartbeat, faint but steady through the thin space between us. The storm was still there, its roar, a constant reminder of the world outside, but it felt distant now, like it couldn't touch us. The room was warm, the lamp's glow steady, painting her in soft gold. I thought about work, about the Sophia who stood at the head of the table, her voice cutting through chatter, her eyes sharp and unyielding. That Sophia was still there. But this one, the one lying next to me, her hair damp, her breath warm, was someone new. Someone I wanted to know, not just admire from across a conference room. The wind screamed again, a branch or something scraping the glass, but it didn't matter. We were here safe together. I felt her shift her shoulder, pressing a little closer, her breath slowing as she relaxed. I wanted to hold on to this, to remember every detail. The eucalyptus scent, the rustle of the blanket, the way her hair caught the light. I'd spent months watching her from a distance, respecting her, maybe a little intimidated by her. But now, In this quieter, storm-battered room, she was just Sophia and I was just Alex. And the space between us wasn't a barrier anymore. It was a bridge. I closed my eyes, not because I was tired, but because I wanted to hold this moment, to let it sink in. The storm kept raging, the wind still whipping against the glass. But I was calm, steadier than I'd been all day. She was here, her warmth beside me, her breath, a quiet rhythm in the dark. And for the first time, I wasn't just the new guy trying to keep up. I was here with her, and that was all that mattered. The storm had quieted its roar, softening to a low moan. The wind no longer rattling the windows with the same fury. The room was still, the air warm with the faint hum of the heater, the lavender scent lingering like a quiet guest. I stirred my eyes, blinking open to the dim glow of the bedside lamp, its yellow light pooling on the ceiling. The world outside hushed, the runway lights steady now through the rain-streaked glass. I lay there, the blanket heavy across my chest, and realized Sophia's hand was resting on my arm. Her fingers light but sure, like she'd reached for me in her sleep. Her touch was warm, grounding, and for a moment I didn't move, didn't breathe, afraid to break it. She was asleep, her breath slow and even, her face soft in a way I'd never seen it work. A few strands of her damp hair had fallen across my pillow, curling against the white linen, catching the lamplight in soft glints. Her sweater was slightly bunched at the shoulder. Her body curled toward me close enough that I could feel her warmth through the blanket. The sight of her, Sophia, the CEO who commanded boardrooms, now just a woman sleeping beside me, hit me hard. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was real, unguarded, like she'd let me see something she kept hidden from the world. I shifted slightly, my arm tingling under her hand, and for a second, I thought about moving away, putting that careful distance back between us. It's what I would have done at work. Kept it professional, kept the lines clear, but I didn't. I stayed, my body still, my eyes tracing the curve of her cheek, the way her lips parted slightly with each breath. The room felt separate from everything. The storm, the airport, the office, like we'd slipped into a pocket of time where nothing else could reach us. The heater clicked a soft sound and a sliver of light from the hallway slipped through the gap in the curtains, painting a faint glow across her face. She looked peaceful, not like the woman who could silence a room with a glance, but like someone who trusted me enough to sleep this close. She stirred, her body shifting, and her hands slid from my arm to my chest. A fleeting touch before she pulled it back, still asleep. The movement was small, unconscious, but it sent a jolt through me, my heart kicking up like it had back at JFK when she'd first suggested sharing the bed. It wasn't about the touch itself. It was what it meant. The way she'd let her guard down, let herself be close without hesitation. I stared at the ceiling, the plaster faintly cracked, and tried to steady my breathing. The storm was quieter now, just a soft patter of rain, but the memory of its howl lingered, a reminder of how we'd ended up here, inches apart, sharing a blanket, a bed, a moment. I thought about work, about the Sophia I knew, tailored suits, sharp eyes, a voice that cut through noise like a knife. That Sophia was still there. But this one, the one sleeping beside me, was different. Her hair smelled faintly of eucalyptus, her breath warm against my shoulder, her hand leaving a ghost of warmth where it had touched. I wanted to protect this, not just her, but this feeling, the quiet trust, the way the room held us like a secret. I'd spent months admiring her from a distance, impressed by her strength, a little intimidated by her presence. But now, in the soft glow of the lamp, she was just Sophia, and I was just Alex. And the space between us wasn't a barrier anymore. It was something shared. The heater hummed, the clock ticked, and the faint sound of her breathing filled the room steady and calm. I wanted to hold on to every detail. The weight of the blanket, the faint creak of the mattress, the way her hair spilled across the pillow. I'd never been this close to her, never seen her this way, and I knew I'd carry this moment long after we left this room. The storm had forced us here, but it was more than that. It was her letting me stay, her hand on my arm, her trust in the dark. I didn't want to sleep, didn't want to lose this to the morning when we go back to being boss and employee, when the lines would snap back into place. She shifted again, her shoulder brushing mine, and I felt her breath catch for a second before settling. The light from the hallway flickered, the curtains swaying slightly, and I could see the curve of her neck, the way her sweater clung to her collarbone. It wasn't about wanting her, not in the way people might think. It was about this quiet, this closeness, the way she'd let me see her without the armor. I'd always respected her, looked up to her, but now I felt something else, something I couldn't name yet. Not love, not yet, but a pull, a need to keep her safe, to keep this moment from slipping away. The storm was barely a whisper now, the rain a soft drizzle, the wind no longer shaking the glass. The room was warm, the lamps glow steady, and I could hear the faint hum of a plane engine outside. Maybe the first one moving since the cancellations. The world was waking up, but in here it was still just us. The clock ticking, the blanket heavy, her warmth, a constant beside me. I thought about the morning, about packing up, heading back to the airport, slipping back into our roles. But right now, those roles didn't exist. It was just Sophia, just Alex, just this bed in this night. I closed my eyes, not because I was tired, but because I wanted to hold on to every second of this. The eucalyptus scent, the soft rustle of the blanket, the faint pressure of her shoulder against mine. The storm had brought us here, but this moment was ours, and I wasn't ready to let it go. I lay there listening to her breathe, feeling the weight of her trust, and knew I'd never forget this night. This room, this woman beside me. The storm had passed, leaving a quiet so deep it felt like the world was holding its breath. Sunlight slipped through the gap in the curtains, a soft gold that cut through the dimness of the suite. I stirred, my eyes heavy, the blanket still warm across my chest. Sophia was already awake, sitting up against the headboard, a hotel robe tied loosely around her, her phone in hand, as she scrolled through emails. Her hair was dry now, falling in soft waves, and the lamplight caught the curve of her jaw, making her look both familiar and new. I blinked, my heart giving a small kick as our eyes met. She smiled, a small, easy curve of her lips, nothing like the sharp nods I got in the office. I smiled back, sitting up the mattress, creaking under my weight. "Morning, Hattie," I said, my voice rough from sleep. "You beat me to it." She set her phone down, leaning back against the pillows. "Always do," she said, her tone light teasing. "Next time, I'm still not letting you take the sofa." I laughed, rubbing the back of my neck, the memory of last night flooding back, her hand on my arm. Her breath closed, the storm's howl, fading under the warmth of the blanket we'd shared. The sofa sat in the corner, small and stiff, a reminder of the choice we'd made. "Noted," I said, swinging my legs over the side of the bed. "But I'm holding you to that." The room was quiet, the air still carrying a faint lavender scent. The heater's hum was replaced by the soft buzz of the city waking up outside. The runway was visible now, planes moving slowly, their lights steady in the clear morning. The storm was gone, leaving only wet streaks on the window and a faint chill in the air. Sophia stood, stretching her robe, slipping slightly at the shoulder, revealing the edge of her sweater. She moved to the desk, packing her laptop with the same precision I'd seen in boardrooms. But there was something softer in her now, a looseness that hadn't been there yesterday. I grabbed my bag, stuffing my clothes in my hands, moving on autopilot while my mind replayed the night, her hair brushing my arm. Her quiet trust, the way the storm had made us feel like the only two people in the world. We didn't talk much as we got ready. I splashed water on my face in the bathroom, the mirror showing a guy who looked both tired and alive, like I'd crossed some invisible line. Sophia was by the window when I came out, her coat back on her scarf draped over her arm. "Taxi's on its way," she said, glancing at me. "Flight's at 9 o'clock. I nodded, zipping my bag. "Back to reality," I said, half joking, but the words felt heavier than I meant. She looked at me, her eyes steady, like she heard the weight, too. "Something like that," she said, a small smile, tugging at her lips. The hotel lobby was quiet, the thick carpet muffling our steps, the yellow lights warm against the morning's gray. Outside, the taxi was waiting its engine, idling, the driver scrolling his phone. We slid into the back seat, our bags between us. The city was waking up around us. Horns honking, pedestrians weaving through crosswalks, the air smelling of wet pavement and exhaust. Sophia looked out her window, her profile sharp against the glass, and I wondered if she was thinking about last night, about the bed, the blanket, the way we'd lain so close. I didn't ask. It wasn't the kind of thing you brought up in a cab on the way to JFK. The airport was calmer now. The chaos of last night replaced by a steady hum of travelers. The screens showing flights back on schedule. We checked in, grabbed coffee from a kiosk, and sat at the gate, the plastic chairs cold under us. Sophia sipped her coffee, black, no sugar, her eyes scanning her phone. I watched her, the way she held herself, all business again. But there was a difference, a softness in the way she glanced at me, a shared secret in the way our eyes met. "You did good yesterday," she said suddenly, not looking up from her phone. "Upspawn. The pitch, you held your own." I blinked, caught off guard. "Thanks," I said, my voice quieter than I meant. "Learn from the best," she smirked. Just a flicker, but it felt like a nod to more than just work. On the plane, we were seated side by side, her in the window seat, me in the middle. The cabin was quiet, the hum of the engine steady as we taxied. She leaned back, her scarf folded in her lap, her eyes on the clouds outside. We didn't talk about the night, didn't mention the bed or the storm, or the way her hand had rested on my arm. But the silence wasn't heavy. It was comfortable, like we'd crossed some line and didn't need words to confirm it. I could still feel her warmth, the faint eucalyptus of her shampoo, the way her breath had matched mine in the dark. I looked out her window, the clouds thick and white below us, and thought about the storm, the way it had forced us together, the way it had changed something I couldn't quite name. She shifted her shoulder, brushing mine, and I caught her eye. She didn't smile, but her look was steady, like she was seeing me, not just the new guy in marketing, but me. "You okay?" she asked, her voice low, almost lost in the engine's hum. I nodded, a small smile breaking through. "Yeah, you." She nodded, back of her lips, curving just enough to notice. Yeah, that was it. No big declarations, no need to dissect what had happened. It was enough. The flight landed in Chicago, the city gray and cold under a clear sky. We grabbed our bags, navigated the terminal, and stepped into another cab. This one heading back to the office. The world was back to normal. Meetings, emails, deadlines, waiting. But something had shifted. The silence between us wasn't the same as it had been before New York. It was warmer, easier, like we'd carried a piece of that night with us. I could still hear the wind's howl, feel the weight of her hand, see the golden glow of the lamp on her face. It wasn't about what we'd said or done. It was about what we'd shared, a moment that didn't need a name to be real. As the cab pulled up to the office, Sophia turned to me, her coat buttoned, her scarf back around her neck. "Good work, Alex," she said, her voice all business again, but her eyes held that same softness from the morning. "Keep it up." I nodded, my throat tight. "Will do," I said. She stepped out, her heels clicking on the pavement, and I followed the city loud around us. We walked into the office, but the night in that room stayed with me, a quiet weight I'd carry for a long time. In the heart of that stormy night at JFK, where Alex and Sophia found themselves sharing a single bed in a quiet hotel room, lies a profound life lesson that resonates deeply with all of us. The beauty of vulnerability and human connection in unexpected moments. Alex, the young marketing newbie, had always seen Sophia as the unapproachable CEO, sharp, commanding, and worlds apart from his own insecurities. Yet, as the wind howled and the rain battered the windows, barriers crumbled. What started as a logistical necessity evolved into something raw and real. A shared warmth under the blankets, soft conversations about hometowns and botched campaigns, and subtle touches that spoke volumes without words. Sophia's guarded facade softened, revealing a woman who, like anyone, sought comfort in the chaos. Alex, in turn, discovered his own strength in offering solace, bridging the gap between boss and employee admiration in genuine intimacy. This story reminds us that life often throws us into storms, literal or metaphorical, where our carefully constructed walls are tested. It's in those vulnerable spaces that true bonds form, teaching us that power isn't in control, but in letting go. We learn to see beyond titles, ages, and roles, recognizing the shared humanity that binds us. Imagine the regret if Alex had insisted on the sofa, clinging to professionalism at the cost of connection. Instead, they emerge changed, carrying a quiet trust back to their everyday lives. It's a poignant reminder that embracing discomfort can lead to profound growth, fostering empathy and relationships that endure long after the storm passes. Friends, if this tale touched your heart or sparked a memory of your own unexpected connections, drop a comment below. Share your story. What storms have brought you closer to someone? And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another inspiring narrative like this. Let's build a community where vulnerability is celebrated. Your thoughts mean the world. Let's connect.